Well, I hope you enjoyed the recent video, You're Thinking About Doughnuts. Now, this one is the sequel, and it's called You're Thinking About Tomatoes. It follows Frank again, but this time, instead of a museum, he's off to visit a stately home, a big country house as part of a school trip. Well, as you may remember from Doughnuts, Frank's little kind of trips round these places always a little bit different, aren't they? Things aren't always, how shall I put it, they aren't what they seem. So, let's see who Frank meets along the way on this visit. Chapter 1, Thinking About a Tomato. Frank watched the head teacher's lips moving. He could hear that he was speaking. He knew that he was being told off. What he didn't know was what Mr. Butcher was getting at. Exactly. There was quite a lot about how disappointed he was. His mother was mentioned quite often, but the rest was just a blur of, if you don't buck up, son, I'm not the only one to be saying this. What are we all here for, eh? Some things in life aren't nice. They're necessary. You've fallen right behind, lad. You're a dreamer, boy. A dreamer. Frank was thinking about Mr. Butcher's chin. It was like a little tomato, he thought, all round and red and shiny. I wonder what would happen if I stuck a pin in it. Some of the complaints have been very serious, lad. Would it burst? You're in a dream, boy, you're in a dream. Maybe it would collapse like a flat tyre. And then finish with a blowing raspberry sound. Can you hear what I'm saying to you, Frank? Yes, sir. Have you been listening to what I've been saying? The tomato kept bobbing about in front of him. He wanted to say, tomatoes, sir. You've been talking about tomatoes. Well? Frank searched around in his head for something that he had heard Mr. Butcher say. All he could find was, I've got to buck my ideas up, sir. It wasn't good enough for Mr. Butcher. Yes, Frank, yes, and a good deal more. Well, listen to this, my boy. And this you'd better remember. This I'd better remember, thought Frank. Your mother wants you to go to the city high school. Am I right? Yes, sir. Do you want to go there? I don't know, sir. No, I'm sure you don't, but your mother is quite sure, and she knows, and I know what this means. Do you know? No, sir. I'm sure you don't. He said that a moment ago, thought Frank. Well, I'll tell you. Yeah, I'm sure you will, thought Frank. I have to recommend you. Do you know what that means? Oh, this really is tiring, thought Frank. Mr. Butcher didn't wait for him to answer this time. It means, I'd love to squeeze that tomato chin till the pips burst out. It means that you have to work, and work. You've got to convince me that you've got application, that you can knuckle down and stick at it. The city high school is not for flashy little fellas with the odd spark of brightness in their heads. Oh no, they want to know that you can start a job, carry on a job, and finish a job. You, Frank, start rarely, carry on once in a blue moon, and finish never. The last never took so much out of Mr. Butcher that he had to stop and do a little breathing and have a rub of his tomato for a moment or two. There was an awkward pause. So Frank thought he ought to say something. Yes, sir, said Frank, without having the tiniest idea of what he was saying yes to. Right, you have one last chance. Tomorrow your class is going to Chiltern House. I've prepared a worksheet for you. This means that you've got to work. It's not going to be just any run-of-the-mill ordinary school outing, Frank. Chiltern House is a very old and famous place full of fascinating and exciting things. Oh no, thought Frank, not another of those fascinating places that turn out to be so boring you want to sit down and sleep for a year. I want that worksheet filled in completed in my hand by the time you climb back on the coach at Chiltern House car park. If it's not, you can say goodbye to the City High School, and as far as I'm concerned, you're on the scrap heap. A waste, with no future, nothing. Now, is there anything you want to say for yourself? Can I stick a pin in your chin, sir? No, he didn't say it. Instead, a picture came up in Frank's mind of the thousands of kids at the other schools, Hill End, Downton, and Sir Nigel Lancaster's, in a huge scrap heap, with a great crane, dropping more and more kids on the top. Was that true? Were all those kids just scrap? Well, it's a big scrap heap, sir, said Frank. That's right. And you want to make sure you're not on it. Now off you go and back to your class. Remember, tomorrow's your last chance. Frank walked out of Mr. Butcher's study, past the football shield, the netball cup, the handicraft goblet, the perseverance medal, and the excellence clock. Yeah, well, I won't get any of those, said Frank to himself. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the story about Frank's adventures at the stately home. Maybe the next time you visit a museum or stately home, you'll be able to look at the objects on display there and wonder where they came from and what their story is. You might want to write your own story inspired by them. Frank also appears in You're Thinking About Doughnuts, which you can find here on Kids Poems and Stories with Michael Rosen. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Just click on the bell to keep updated with all the latest vids that we post here.